That morning, the sun filtered softly through the kitchen curtains. I'd even made my daughter's favourite tea, lemon ginger, just in case she stopped by early. My grandson Ethan was already there, leaning against the doorway in his grey hoodie, scrolling through his phone. He'd dropped out of college last year to start a repair business, though he hadn't fixed much. My daughter Sarah, always punctual, arrived minutes later, iPad in hand, work bag slung over her shoulder like always. She sat down, didn't even take her coat off. "We've been thinking," she said. "If you sold the house, we could cover my loan, get Ethan set up with a workspace in the garage, and move you into the guest suite." I tried to smile, I tried to understand. Then she said it. "If you're not willing to sell the house, Mom, don't expect to live here for long." The sentence, it hit hard, like a door slammed inside me. Did she just say that to me? Plans? What plans? Since when did my home become a barrier to their vision? I felt my hand still mid-stir over the teacup, the spoon clinking once before silence took over. "My name is Elaine Morton, 74 years old. I live alone in the house I built with my late husband in upstate New York. And that's the moment I realized I was no longer family. I was an obstacle." "Grandma, you know I love you, but this just makes sense," he said. "You're sitting on a $600,000 asset. If we sold the house, we could clear Mom's student loans, and I could finally set up the computer repair shop in the garage. Have a place to stay, to work, to build something real." I turned to him, the same boy who once helped me bake chocolate chip cookies in this very kitchen. "Sweetheart, it's not an asset to me. It's a home. Your grandfather and I." I know, Ethan cut in. "You two built it, raised Mom here. But maybe it's time to build something new." For us, Sarah stepped in, voice clipped, professional, like she was pitching to a reluctant client. "Mum, you're 74. You live here alone. That fall last winter scared us. This place is old, uneven, full of stairs. Wouldn't it be safer to come live with us? We'll fix up the guest suite." I didn't argue about safety. I know I've grown frail, but the way she said "live with us" sounded more like a relocation plan than a welcome. I tried to keep my voice steady. "I appreciate the concern, daughter. I really do. But I'm not ready to trade the last piece of my independence for just in case." Ethan's tone sharpened, patience slipping away. "Grandma, we're not asking you to give us money. Just sell the house. You'll still have some cash left over. And we finally get to move forward." I turned to look at the same boy I once cradled as an infant. Now he was talking to me like I was a dated investor who didn't understand how the world worked. Sarah straightened, fingers tightening around her arms. "So, what's more important, Mom? Your house or your grandson's future?" Silence. I could hear my heartbeat, steady, heavy. And I realized this wasn't about the house anymore. It was a judgment of whether I still had value in their eyes. I stood slowly, setting my teacup in the sink. My eyes lingered on my hands, the same hands that once helped Sarah cross the street, the same hands that steadied Ethan as he learned to walk. Then I turned and faced them both. Daughter, grandson. If I sell this house, I lose more than brick and wood. I lose the last space in the world where no one decides for me. Sarah stepped back, her confidence faltering. "If you think loving me means erasing everything I've built, then maybe I've been wrong about what family means." No one said a word. Ethan curled his lip into a dry, joyless smile, then turned away. Sarah stepped closer to me, her voice low, but sharp enough to cut glass. "Fine. Keep your house, Mom, but don't come calling when things get hard. Don't expect help if you're choosing to be difficult." I stared at her for a long moment, didn't answer, just filed it away, like a note in the back of my mind. I knew I'd never forget. She glanced around the kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd made thousands of meals that helped her grow into the woman she was, and delivered one final line, like a veiled threat dropped onto the table. "You don't want to be part of our plans? Don't be surprised when we start planning without you." Ethan didn't add anything. He just pulled the door. Not a slam, but hard enough that the glass on the shelf gave a tiny tremble. I stood there, in my kitchen, alone. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. They weren't angry because I refused to help. They were angry because I dared not obey. This wasn't just disappointment. It was a warning. And I knew. The real consequences of saying no had only just begun. The phone stayed quiet the next day. No check-ins, no familiar voices in the afternoon. Just stillness. Saturday came and went. Dinner didn't. At 4 p.m., Sarah texted, "Let's skip dinner this week. Everyone's busy, everyone." One word, and yet, it said so much. 3 nights later, Ethan messaged, late, 11:47 p.m. Just curious. Still think sitting on that old house is the smarter move? I let it sit there, unopened for a while, because I already knew the conversation had shifted from asking to accusing. The next morning, another message. "Grandma, I'm not mad. I just thought you believed in me more than that." I stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, remembering his small hands helping me stir cookie dough. The boy was gone. This voice was different, edged, entitled. From Sarah? Nothing. Until a Facebook post surfaced. "Sunday brunch with my people, grateful for real support, my daughter, my grandson." Laughing, clinking glasses. No mention of me, no place set at that table. Then an email. "Mum, just checking. Did you pay the property tax this quarter? Not even a hope you're well." The house again. Always the house. Another text from Ethan. Most people would be lucky to have family pushing them forward. But okay, your choice. Not a bridge. A boundary. I kept cooking, watered the plants, folded towels. But even the walls felt distant now. The ticking clock, once background noise, was suddenly the only thing speaking. They didn't say it, didn't need to. Sometimes, the loudest rejection is the one no one says out loud. They just fade you out. That was when I realized I wasn't mom anymore, not grandma, just the one who stood in their way. It started with dusting. That day, the house felt particularly still. Too still. So I took out the old rag and began cleaning the shelves, more out of restlessness than purpose. Behind a pile of outdated cookbooks, my hand touched something hard and familiar. Wrapped in a napkin frayed at the edges. I found it. The leather cover had faded, the corners worn soft with age. It was our family album. And just like that, time cracked open. The first photo, Derek, my husband. Young, sun-kissed, with laugh lines already forming around his eyes. He was holding baby Sarah, whose arms stretched upward like she was trying to grab the clouds. We were on the front porch, this same house, back when the paint was fresh and the air smelled like tomatoes from the garden and dreams we hadn't yet lost. That year we painted the nursery together. He hummed off-key the whole time and I pretended to be annoyed. We ate dinner on the floor with paper plates because we hadn't finished unpacking, but we were too happy to care. Another photo. Sarah, age 5, wearing a pink tutu, standing on the coffee table, declaring herself queen of the living room. I remembered making that tutu with leftover fabric from my old dress. She wore it for days, even to the grocery store. Back then, when she scraped her knee, she'd run to me like I was the only medicine she needed. She used to fall asleep on my chest, her breath warm, her heartbeat echoing mine. And Ethan. Ethan used to call me Gamma because he couldn't say grandma properly. He once brought me a dandelion, roots and all, and said, "This one's tougher than the rest." Just like you. They didn't see me as a burden then. They didn't calculate my worth in appraisals or inheritance. Back then, I was the heart of this home, not its obstacle. But now this house, once filled with noise and light, is a quiet museum of what was. The porch is chipped, the garden wild. The photo frames are dusty, untouched. And the phone doesn't ring unless someone wants something. The woman who once danced barefoot in the kitchen with her baby daughter now sits alone with the kettle, wondering when love started requiring a return on investment. And maybe what broke me most wasn't what they said. It was what they forgot. They forgot the hands that stayed up all night with fevered foreheads. They forgot the voice that sang lullabies into restless ears. They forgot the warmth of a mother's waiting arms, because now they only feel the cold of what she won't give. I sat on the floor with the album in my lap, pages resting across my knees, and cried in the kind of way that doesn't make a sound. Because I wasn't mourning the people in the pictures. I was mourning how far they had drifted from the people they used to be, and how far I had let myself shrink to keep being useful to them. But that day, something shifted. It was quiet, just a thought. But it landed hard. You've loved them long enough by forgetting yourself. Now try loving yourself by remembering who you were. That afternoon, I opened the silverware drawer and paused. The spoons weren't where I left them. I'd just come back from the grocery store, the late afternoon sun still stretching across the porch. My arms were full, a bag of oranges, a bundle of celery, but as I stepped into the kitchen, something felt off. The dessert forks I always kept to the left were now on the right. The soup spoons had been pushed to the back, and my mother's wooden ladle, the one I'd wrapped in a soft felt sleeve, was gone. Tucked into the lower drawer, I found a small note neatly printed, cleaned and resorted for easier use. Lana, the housekeeper Sarah insisted I hire. Just to help out a little, Mum, she'd said, voice all honey and concern. I hadn't needed help, but I let it go. At the time, I thought I was still in control of my own house. I began to suspect I wasn't. The next morning, I caught Lana in my bedroom. She was folding my winter sweaters into vacuum-sealed storage bags, moving quietly and efficiently, like someone preparing for a planned departure. Thought I'd start packing away out-of-season clothes, she said cheerfully. Your daughter said it's better to be ahead of things. Ahead of what? I hadn't agreed to leave. This was still my home. I picked up one of the sweaters, soft wool with the faint scent of pine from last Christmas. Please leave those. I haven't made any decisions about going anywhere. Lana paused, nodded politely, and stepped back without surprise, as if she'd been told I might resist. That same evening, Ethan stopped by. He walked in like he had a key to the place, sneakers tracking in dust, a casual smile on his face, phone still in his hand. Hey, Grandma! Just a heads up, I had a buddy from real estate swing by earlier. Just a quick walkthrough. No big deal. He said it like it was the weather, as if a stranger walking through my house, measuring walls and counting closets, was perfectly natural. You brought someone into my home? I asked, quiet but firm. Ethan raised an eyebrow, trying to sound reassuring. Just to get a sense of comps and layout. You know, prep work, in case you change your mind. Market's moving fast. Change my mind. I never said I was selling. But from the way he spoke, the decision was already penciled in. All that remained was my signature. The next day, an envelope arrived. Thick paper, legal font. From a title company. The front read, Elaine Mitchell and Sarah Taylor, Joint Ownership Documentation. I had never signed anything to share ownership of this house. Inside was a pre-filled deed transfer form. My name Sarah's, already typed in. A sticky note was attached. Form prepped for your convenience. Just sign when ready. No one had called. No one had asked. It was just assumed. A system already in motion waiting for the last obstacle, me, to move quietly out of the way. Later that day, my phone rang. Sarah's voice came through soft and measured, the same tone she used when trying to sell me an idea she'd already committed to. Mum, I heard from Lana that you haven't signed the evaluation form. Everything's ready to go. Is there something wrong? I paused, then said calmly, I just want to understand what's happening. Because it seems like a lot of decisions are being made without me. She sighed. Not loud, just enough for me to hear it. "We're trying to do what's best for everyone. You've said it yourself. The house is too big. You fell. You live alone. We're not pushing you, just preparing. For when it's time, when it's time." So they'd already decided when my time would be. Later, Ethan returned. He brought a freshly printed version of the transfer form, folded and highlighted. "It's just a first step, Grandma. Nothing final. We just want to be proactive." He placed a pen down on the table gently, but with purpose. I picked up the paper, read it line by line, then set it down, equally gently. "This isn't a project. And I'm not a placeholder in someone else's financial plan." Ethan smiled thinly, a look I didn't recognize. "We just think it's the smart move as for the family." I looked at him. This boy I once rocked to sleep who used to draw me crayon cards on Mother's Day. Now he sat across from me like a strategist meeting a reluctant stakeholder. That night I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my old notebook. On the first empty page I wrote, "They don't ask anymore. They just expect." Because in their eyes, I'm no longer a keeper of this home. I'm the obstacle between them and their future. The next morning, I called my lawyer. For the first time in over a decade, this was no longer just about the house. It was about remembering that I had a voice. And it still mattered. That morning, I put on the green scarf Derek gave me, the one I always wore when I needed courage, and walked 3 blocks to the bank. The clerk behind the desk smiled politely, typing my name into the system. Then her brows knit together. "Looks like your daughter has been granted view-only access to your accounts. With your authorization last year." I blinked. That document. I remembered signing it after my hospital stay. Sarah had said it was just in case of emergencies. "So I can keep an eye on bills, Mom." No big deal. No big deal. Until it is. I asked the clerk to print my latest statements. 2 transfers had been made to an account I didn't recognize, small amounts, under the threshold that would raise alarms. But enough to sting. "I'd like to remove all third-party access immediately," I said. My voice was steady. My hands were not. She nodded, handed me the necessary forms. I signed them right there. From the bank, I went straight to the law office where Derek and I had first drawn up our will. Mr. Grant, our family attorney, still worked there. Older now, with thinner hair but the same gentle eyes. I handed him the outdated copy of my will and said, "I want to revise everything. Effective immediately. I want full protection for my house. And I want to revoke any joint claims or presumptive heirs who don't treat this place, or me, with respect." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Have there been attempts to pressure you?" I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Let's just say they forgot who built the foundation they're standing on. We spent an hour combing through every clause. I added a provision. No changes to property ownership or access without my notarized signature. Another clause. Any future claims must be accompanied by documented care, not just a biological connection. And most importantly, I named my home a protected personal residence, with a legal freeze on sale or transfer under undue influence. That evening, I returned home. Lana wasn't there. Neither was Ethan, but Sarah showed up just before dinner. She brought soup and a fresh printout of the deed transfer, this time with the price filled in. $638,000. A sticky note in her handwriting. Great offer. Let's not miss this. She placed it gently on the kitchen table next to my teacup. I don't want to fight, Mom. I just want what's fair. I looked at her. This woman I raised, this woman who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms and ask if monsters were real. Now she sat across from me, pushing paperwork like a broker. You're right, I said, folding the paper in half. So let's be fair. I walked over to the cabinet, pulled out the updated documents from my purse, and laid them on the table beside her form. This house is no longer eligible for transfer, sale, or shared control. As of 10:32 this morning, it became protected. Legally. Permanently, Sarah's lips parted, but no sound came. Her eyes flicked from the legal seal to my face. You went behind our backs? No, I said quietly. I finally stepped out from behind yours. I brought dessert. An old habit, I suppose. 2 slices of pecan pie, Sarah's favourite when she was little. I baked them myself that morning, hoping, foolishly perhaps, that sweetness might soften what was coming. They were already in the living room when I arrived. They looked up, surprised, maybe even a little uneasy. Mum, Sarah said, voice measured, we were going to loop you in after dinner. We've just been putting together a draft offer to counter. The buyers are very interested. I placed the pie on the coffee table gently. So it's not just ideas anymore. You've moved on to counters. Ethan looked up, his tone cooler than hers. We haven't signed anything, Grandma. Just gathering options. It's smart to stay ready. And was it smart? I asked slowly, to keep preparing without ever really asking me again. Sarah sat up straighter. We're asking now. I nodded, took a breath, still trying to meet them where they were. Then let me be clear. I've lived in this house for over 40 years. I raised a child here. I buried my husband here. This isn't just property. It's memory. It's identity. I need you to understand that Sarah leaned forward, elbows on knees. And we do, Mom. But you also have to understand, if we sold the house and paid off my student loan, we'd clear 6 figures and still have seed money to help Ethan launch that repair business. This is a practical solution. I felt my hands tighten around the pie plate. Was this still my home? Or just their way out of debt? She continued, this place is becoming a weight. On you. On all of us. You say you don't want help, but what happens when you fall again? I glanced at Ethan. He wouldn't meet my eye. You think this house is dangerous? I asked. Then why are you so eager to own it? That hung in the air a little too long. I gave them one last look, my daughter, my grandson, and, for a moment, I truly wished they would stop. That one of them would look at me and say, we're sorry. We forgot you're still the owner. But that moment never came. Sarah reached into her folder and pulled out another form. This is just a basic consent form to move forward with the evaluation. We've pre-filled everything to save you time. Just your signature, and then we'll... I held up a hand. Enough. I stood slow but firm, walked to the hallway closet, and came back with a thick envelope. I laid it down between the pie and the paperwork. Deliberate, quiet, final. This is my consent. Sarah opened the envelope cautiously, her fingers trembling slightly. Mum, you revised the will? Froze the title. Yes, because while you were busy making plans behind my back, I was making sure I still had a front door to walk through. Ethan snatched the papers, scanned them quickly, then slammed them onto the table. You're sabotaging your own family for what? Pride. You don't trust us? I trusted you with my home. My memories. And you turned them into bargaining chips. Sarah shot up from her seat, her calm cracking. That's not fair. We were trying to help you. You keep acting like a victim when we're the ones cleaning up your messes. Messes? I let out a dry laugh. You call this life I built for you a mess? You're being selfish, Ethan shouted. You're putting a house above your own family. No, I replied, voice steady and cold. I'm putting truth above illusion. And I'm done pretending that blood means loyalty. Ethan slammed his palm on the table, rising to his feet. You're making this impossible, Grandma. We've done everything, tried to plan, to help, but you're just stuck. I looked at him. This boy I once bathed, once bandaged, once called my miracle. Stuck? You think I'm stuck because I won't hand over my life like a closing document? Sarah jumped in, her voice raised. You always told me to be strong, Mom. To make hard choices, that's what we're doing. No, I said slowly. You're not making hard choices. You're making excuses to silence the person who gave you the right to make any at all. Sarah faltered. We were trying to give you comfort. Security, you're alone here, and that fall last year scared us. Then say that, I answered. Say you're scared. Say you miss me. Don't dress up control as concern. Ethan turned away. Sarah stood frozen, fists clenched. You're twisting everything. We didn't come here to fight, I nodded slowly. Then why did you come with a pen and not a memory? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of things unsaid, of moments erased too easily. I stepped closer, my voice quieter now, but unshakable. You want to know what helping looks like? It's sitting in this kitchen and asking how I'm really doing. It's remembering how many nights I held you through stomach aches and heartbreaks. Helping isn't cleaning drawers. It's remembering whose hands bled to buy them. Sarah swallowed hard, her eyes misting. I sighed. The anger had burned off. What remained was truth. You think you're ready to lead this family? Then show me you remember where it began. Ethan quietly placed the paper back on the table. He said nothing. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. We just wanted to do right by you. I looked at her, my daughter, with something deeper than hurt, with history. Then listen to me. That's all I ever wanted. I stepped back just a little, letting the silence wrap around us. They didn't respond, not because they had nothing to say, but because somewhere deep inside, they knew I was right. And maybe that was the part that hurt them most. I glanced at the pie, still untouched on the table. You know, Sarah, I said gently, when you were 6, you once broke your favourite doll. You cried for hours. But when I offered to glue it back together, you said, no, Mommy, I want to fix it myself. I paused, watching her shoulders lower just slightly. That's when I knew you'd grow up to be strong. But I never imagined you'd forget that fixing something means respecting what it was before it broke. Ethan didn't meet my eyes. Sarah blinked fast. This house isn't just where I live. It's where I loved. And if that's inconvenient for you, then maybe love has become just another thing you plan around. I gathered my coat. I'm not kicking you out. But I am drawing a line. And maybe someday, when life gives you more than spreadsheets and deadlines, you'll remember what it felt like to sit at this table and be seen. They didn't stop me as I walked to the door, but I knew, from the silence, from the weight in the room, that something had shifted. Maybe not enough to change their minds today, but enough to haunt their next decision. It's been 3 weeks. The house is quieter than before. Not because anything's missing, but because I've stopped waiting for footsteps that never arrive. The pie plate's still in the dishwasher. The documents, the ones I filed to protect this place, are tucked neatly in a drawer beside my knitting needles. No one has called, no one has knocked. And strangely, I'm okay with that. Because somewhere between the shouting and the silence, I remembered something I'd long forgotten. I've always known how to start over. I was 28 when we bought this house, pregnant, exhausted. I painted these walls between morning sickness and paycheck cycles, held Sarah against my chest in that sunroom after her first fever broke, laughed until I cried when her father fell through the attic trying to fix a leak. This house isn't just where I stayed, it's where I became. So no, I didn't freeze the title out of fear. I did it to reclaim something I didn't know I had lost, my right to be the author of my final chapter. And now, I've joined a book club at the library, started teaching a small baking class at the community centre. Even donated a portion of my savings to a local women's shelter. With one condition: that they use it to create a space for women over 60 who feel like the world's moved on without them. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You're never too old to draw a boundary, never too late to rewrite the terms of your love. And maybe one day, Sarah and Ethan will knock on this door again. Not with contracts, but with conversation. If they do, I'll answer. Not as the woman they tried to manage, but as the woman who remembered her worth in time to protect it. Home isn't just where love lives, it's where dignity stands. And when we protect it, with grace, with grit, and with voice, we don't just preserve our past, we shape the future. So, that's how the story ends. If this made you think, or if you've lived through something similar, share your thoughts in the comments. Our channel is a space for sharing tales of the elderly and family revenge stories from people who have weathered life's storms. Subscribe to the channel for more, because sometimes the deepest form of revenge is simply living on your own terms.